What's good, y'all? Here with another video. And today, well, first I want to say Happy New Year. I'm sorry I've been gone for a minute. I was out of town. I was doing a bunch of different stuff. Long story, but I'm here for now. But we're going to be reacting to Mortal Kombat 1 has a retro skin problem or some shit like that. It's about a fourth snake. Shout out to the fourth snake. Link up in the description. This game, I had a lot of optimism for it when it came out. You know, I played it a lot. You know, y'all seen it. But this game is disappointing. I'm not gonna lie, it is. It's just some different things that I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it anymore. I've ranted about it too many times. But let's just get into the video.
Mortal Kombat has a serious bias problem. I've gone into this several times in the past, from predictable retro costumes in MKX and 11, to repetitive toy lines, to how MK11 had two, technically three, new movies released during its life cycle, but the only movie tie-ins were for the movie that released 2.5 decades prior. Mortal 1 Kombat, Fought is how it is written on the box, despite bringing back several characters from the 3D era of the series, continues the trend of favouring arcade era characters over 3D in several areas. And the recent selection of retro costumes is probably the most prominent example of that in recent times. I mean, as much as they're among my favourite looks for the characters, I couldn't possibly ask.
I'm not gonna lie, that Raiden costume, I love that Raiden costume. That one and the dark version of it, fire. I don't think that they will be doing the Sindel one or the Melina one just because they don't like using like revealing clothing nowadays, so they probably won't use it. They probably put some pants on Melina and Sindel. I don't know.
The current art team, given their priorities, to bring back 3D era costumes for Melina, Sindel, Baraka, or Raid Shadow Legends, the sponsor of today's video. That's
nice.
Right, I've crossed over into another. Now to get back to business, M1K has included several retro costumes pulled from prior entries.
But that Deadly Alliance one don't really look like that one. I get it, it's probably not gonna look exactly the same, but it just doesn't. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Cameo fighters, when not featured in the story, are designed to be pure nostalgic throwbacks featuring classic designs, moves, and finishes. And a few small additions aside, such as the ice added to Sub-Zero's head rip, or the Shaolin Monks-esque explosion with Toasty, very little is done to change or update them. Every design and fatality for these classic characters are pretty much perfect retro throwbacks. The only notable changes here are Sub-Zero's colours being darker, more in line with modern looks than MK2, MK1 Kano being bald like MKX presented him as, and Kung Lao having the ponytail his fighter version has instead of the classic mullet. But at least Sub-Zero has the correct mask now, and I'll certainly take Kung Lao's ponytail over his baldness from MK11, or the muted colours of MKX. Wow, NetherRealm really likes MK3 Kung Lao, eh? But with the 3D era rep, such love and care is not really taken. Darius' outfit is almost unchanged from his original, and his returning fatality is very faithful, despite not needing to be the case due to his story presence. But Frost and Shujinko are also present in the cameo roster, and do not receive the same treatment. I'll discuss Tremor and Chameleon a little later. So, Frost's design, like in MK11, is not her Deadly Alliance design, but an MK2 Sub-Zero cosplay. They did alter it from MK11 to make it more accurate, like removing the high heels and the thigh windows. But overall, it just is not her classic costume, nor is her fatality the one from Deadly Alliance. They just made up a new one and it's kinda ass. Same with Shujinko, who barely even looks like him. His face looks suspiciously like MK11 Shang Tsung.
He does.
His beard isn't as full. His hair is grey instead of white. His outfit is yellow and there's no accurate beige palette. The baggy sleeves are missing despite how good they could look now. And his fatality is some generic kung fu master thing that better fits Pai Mei than the ability stealing Shujinko. Like, his old finishes weren't great, but at least let him do something Shujinko-like copying the opponent's fatality. Tremor is from the null zone between arcade era and 3D era, being from a spin-off game. His fatality being original doesn't bother me since they're going for a retro feel, and MKX fatalities have that modern length and brutality to them. Making something new isn't ideal, but it's not objectionable either in this case. What is objectionable, however, is his design. Tremor wasn't in MK2, nor was his original design based on it. It was somewhere between UMK3 ninjas and MK4 Sub-Zero. Clearly they used MK2 because that's what Sub-Zero and Scorpion had.
They just did the color swaps for some reason. I feel like they should have just used the MKX version if that's the case. Like, that would have been fine.
Despite the game claiming it's MK1, you can tell by the hockey mask that it's MK2. So the actual work went into giving him Rocky skin that doesn't resemble either of his prior designs. I cannot fathom what the team were going for with this, since it's neither accurate nor retro. What it is baffling. Still, at least they didn't label this one as Special Forces, like how they labelled Serena as Mythologies. Chameleon gets some leeway being part of the story, but her design is derived from Armageddon. They gave her a bob cut and covered her white skin that used to be transparent in some areas. Not deal breakers. This can be viewed as akin to the scrapped reimagining of Melina's Deception design conceived for MKX. But the latter point does relate to the big controversy with the retro skins given to the fighters. Between them, as of this writing, the fighters have received 4 retro costumes thus far: Scorpion and Sub-Zero's Deadly Alliance alternates, Nitara's Deadly Alliance primary, and Li Mei's Deception primary. Sub-Zero gets off easiest with just some odd icicles added to his legs and mask, and the design looking a bit off due to the more realistic proportions. No major problems here. Scorpion's, however, is fundamentally incorrect. The original costume is notable solely for Scorpion having his flaming skull exposed. That is the only reason anyone would want that costume to return, since the actual clothing isn't anything special. NetherRealm chose this costume out of 6 possible 3D era designs.
I'm not gonna lie. That Shaolin Monks one is gas. It's gas, bro. I know it's just like a MK2 one, but it's gas. Them Shaolin Monks costumes are tough. Scorpion got some tough costumes, but I think that they were playing. It looks like the skin is burning on this one, even though it's still the skull. But I feel like they were using that image. But it still doesn't make sense because it's supposed to be a skull, and it's literally just his face burning in the MK1 version. I don't know what they were doing.
Very likely because of the skull. And they gave him a charred head instead. This would be like MK11 bringing back Sub-Zero's Deception costume without the Shredder helmet.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The reason for this change is obvious. Some fatalities remove skin from the face, so having just a skull wouldn't work. My response to that is, who the fuck cares?
Right.
Oh no, a few fatalities I'll barely ever see on this costume will look a bit strange. It didn't stop me from ripping the skin off Jax's cybernetic arms in MK11, or smashing Kano's cyber eye off like a cheap sticker in the same game. Sometimes fatalities just don't look quite right, and that's okay. I'd take that hit for an actual flaming skull, and I bet most other fans would too. But if it's really this huge issue that can't be ignored for the sake of the artistic vision, then just have the skull effect turn off during certain cinematics. No one complains that Nitara's wings disappear, or that characters lose masks and hats that magically come back once the cinematic is over. It's fine. Have Scorpion's skull become a human head during those moves. And if even that is unacceptable or too much work, pick a different costume. Deadly Alliance had another costume, Deception had 2, and even Shaolin Monks had 2 designs.
Yeah.
Any of those could be included as is without any changes that make their inclusion pointless.
And they all hard.
And on that note, the ladies.
Yeah, these is crazy.
Now, this is one of those frustrating topics because it relates...
I know I keep pausing, but just bear with me. I'm not like, I don't really care if about the revealing clothes or anything. Like, I'm not a weirdo of like their video game characters. I'm not a loser. With that said, though, don't bring in classic costumes if they're not going to be the costumes. Those are supposed to be classic costumes, and they look really nothing like, you know what I'm saying? Nitara doesn't even have an eye patch, I don't even think. So it's like, I don't know what they doing, bro.
The women being covered up. Nitara and Li Mei now have pants and are generally more covered up. I dislike these changes from both an aesthetic and nostalgic perspective, but I'm not allowed to say that or I'll get dragged into another pointless culture.
What is it? I love this new design. She looks a lot cooler. These Persona 5X redesigns remind me of that DOA mobile game where they censored a bunch of outfits with extra black bits, and they looked way cooler. Okay.
Debate. Everyone has an angle, and most people are extreme in their bad taste.
Well, rated M for ma'am. These designs just highlight how little devs understand their audiences. 99% of players don't want a modernized Nitara Li Mei custom. Hypocrisy with MK is off the charts now.
critiques, painting everyone who disagrees with them as a chud or an SJW.
You spend your time
Even
getting
certain
a
prominent
get at the
figures in
game
the
instead
MK
of
fandom
whining
have
and
put out
crying
these
because you're
dog
seeing no
shit
bikinis
takes,
anymore.
and it's so disheartening that we can't just look at these costumes that NetherRealm is trying to sell us as nostalgic throwbacks, finally giving us our 4th ever 3D era callback costumes, priced higher than the DLC fighters are, with limited availability windows to instill a sense of FOMO,
I didn't pay for
dishonest
them,
marketing
so.
because this is not Deception Lee May, and criticize them for any of these myriad issues without being told to go watch porn if we want to jack off. I mean, bold of you to assume exposed female skin does anything for me. I'm asexual, motherfucker. I don't care about skimpy costumes. It's the principle of the manner in which NetherRealm approaches the marketing and sales of these things, and how my favourite era of the franchise continues to be disrespected, while the absurdly overplayed arcade era continues to be treated with detrimental reverence. Because aside from Sub-Zero's colours and Kano and Kung Lao's hair, the costumes from MK1, 2 and 3 are so lovingly recreated once again, filled with passion and adoration for those costumes that, while iconic, are pretty basic and often don't even look good in today's graphics. I would even go as far as to say that, despite having come back 3 times in a row, MK3 Jax has never looked good in these games, because he's wearing fucking spandex tights. But NetherRealm stick to the original designs, only a handful of things have changed with those costumes, and they even gave Jax the appropriate facial hair this time. But the 3D era ones, which fit in better in the modern style thanks to the higher levels of detail, and would thus require less alterations, are the ones getting these tasteless and ugly changes. At least with Scorpion there is a practical reason for the change, as stupid as it is. But with the 2 women, there is nothing in the game that would work better or worse from having one-to-one recreations of those original designs.
Right.
So it must be agenda driven, right? It must be because current NetherRealm is embarrassed of the skimpier costumes and goes out of its way to avoid them, resulting in hideous jumpsuits for several characters and these awful redesigns. Lee May is the most egregious one because Nitara's alternate costume was skimpier, so this is the only one they'd realistically go for in this
I forgot about that
but
one.
Lee May has had 3 other perfectly serviceable.
Yeah, those are hard. They could have went with either one of those, especially the one with the helmet, even the one with the baggy pants. I don't know what they're doing, bro.
Costumes between Deadly Alliance, Deception, and even MKX, whose design we never got to use. Any of those would have been fine alternatives with no need to change anything to suit the company's current standards. One of them even has her toes out to fit the overall aesthetic. But making the smart decision has never been NetherRealm's strong suit. Lest we forget how none of these retro costumes for the playable fighters, each given 6 colour palettes and a gear piece, actually have their original second colour palettes, with only Sub-Zero's mask and Nitara's wings being anything from those original games, the rest being some made up taff to jack up the price. Admittedly, they did go that far for Shujinko, but not Frost or Darius. But there are technically 2 other retro costumes from playable fighters, Dark Raiden and Titan Shang Tsung from MK11. Aside from Shang's new gauntlets, which are included for gameplay purposes, him now having a cape, Raiden's hat, which we can correct with the playable version, and Raiden's wrong amulet in the wrong place, these 2 have no significant design changes from their MK11 counterparts. They even included Red Lightning and God Raiden's face and voice just for one story mode fight. And while we're not getting that Raiden in the costume when his invasion season comes around, NetherRealm put in the effort to make another model with the mortal Raiden wearing it. So why are the costumes from the NetherRealm era treated with as much reverence as those of the arcade era, with only a handful of notable changes that don't substantially affect the costume's appeal, while those of the 3D era constantly get alterations? Because some bozo on the team thinks exposed skin is impractical? Wow, it sure is a shame no one on the team has watched professional mixed martial arts and seen how real-life female fighters were short, a top, and nothing else. It is also a shame they have never had a real MMA fighter in the studio to consult with while working on one of these games. If only, eh? And let's be honest, the practicality argument has always been bogus. If practicality mattered even 1 iota to the art team, none of the women would be decked out in fucking open-toed high heels, much less practically all of them. NetherRealm's desire to tone down their sexiness is absolutely real, but in this specific case, it's part of a larger issue. NetherRealm Studios does not respect.
It's like, I get you want to tone down the, the excessiveness with the, not having a lot of clothes on. But it's like, don't tell your fans that you're gonna give them retro costumes if the costumes don't look like how, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a difference between wanting to be horny and wanting something that was a part of, like, the game that you loved. It's not necessarily about wanting to see gaming characters naked because, well, I'm not gonna say that for everybody, just for me personally. It's just about your false advertising at this point. You get what I'm saying?
the 3D era.
But it's your
It
fault
never
if you buy
has,
it,
and
so.
it never will. Despite them including a decent selection of 3D era reps this time, very few of them actually feel like the same characters. Nitara is a generic bad guy, Darius has no character or motivation, Havoc got
Right.
merged with Dairu and resembles neither, and Chaos Realm no longer exists. Ashra managed
Which
to
is
get by
crazy.
okay, and Kenshi and Li Mei are really good, but that's about it. NetherRealm respects the 3D era about as much as it respects your investment in the current product. If nothing else, whether you like the redesigns or not, we should all be able to agree on two things. 1. Not everyone who dislikes the redesigns is a porn-addicted misanthrope. Some of us just want accurate retro costumes like Street
Exactly.
Fighter gets. If they can't deliver with these costumes, they shouldn't use them at all. And 2. These costumes are not fucking worth 10 quid. That's outrageous. Ain't no way this monstrosity
$10?
is worth more than Takeda Takahashi. If you liked this video, go check out Raid Shadow Legends.
Well, that was a good video. Shout out to Fourth Snake. He's right though. Like I said, you don't have to be a hornball to want accuracy. It's like you're false advertising and you're up in the charge for costumes when the DLC characters don't even cost that much. It's like, I don't know. That's why I don't even be paying all that money for real. Like, you gotta pay money to get the holiday fatalities, and every costume costs a bunch of bullshit. Like, I'm really kind of over that game. Like, I'm gonna play it again when Peacemaker come out, but I'm really don't even be on that. But that's the end of the video. Make sure y'all like, subscribe, and I'm out. Peace.